I now recognize the member for Pointe-a-Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker, for recognizing me as I join this debate this afternoon. Deputy Speaker, before I get into my presentation, I must... Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Before I get into my presentation, which will be mostly on Clause 5, like the Minister of Energy, I just want to put on the record a couple of things. Firstly, I would like to congratulate all my colleagues who would have spoken here this afternoon. I think the member for, even my colleague from Mayaro, he did a fantastic job in the cyber aspect. Deputy Speaker, I just want to go to clause. The bill that we are debating here this afternoon is 8 clauses. I just want to expand or just...
Members, please. Let's hear the member for Pointe-a-Pierre.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, clause 4(2), where it talks about the 500,000 sponsorship, corporate sponsorship to public and private schools. I don't think any one of us on this side is against that initiative or that amendment, Deputy Speaker. It augurs well for our country, I think. If I can stick a pin, maybe the Minister of Finance could increase it in time. But on a personal note, Deputy Speaker, I would like to ask the Minister of Finance, whether or not the Minister of Finance might consider opening up this sponsorship to parents that participate, that have kids or children in schools or even past pupils of certain schools. It might be a good initiative. I remember that I heard the Minister of Energy, Pointe-a-Pierre, North St. Anne's West, mention that, when he was visiting one of his schools in his constituency and the place was overheated, the climate. And maybe I would want to stick, maybe the Minister of Finance could consider having a sort of a sponsorship or allowance, tax allowance by parents who would like to sponsor certain capital expenditure in the schools that their children attend. I just put that down, maybe air conditionings, etc., fans. And they could either write it off from their personal taxes. So I just asked the Minister of Finance maybe to consider that. Maybe not today, but maybe in the future, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, when you look at these 8 clauses, and I will get into my substantive area, which is Clause 5, the SPT. Clause 7. Clause 7 talks about the bill seeks to amend the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act by amending Section 58A to include goods and services and works up to $1 million, as opposed to goods and services up to $1 million. So what the Minister of Finance is proposing here this afternoon is, again, changing how the Procurement Act is supposed to operate, Deputy Speaker. The Minister of Finance gave an explanation in his opening presentation this afternoon that for all intents and purposes, works tends to go with goods and services. But when you look at the definition of works in the Parent Act, works talks about engineering and construction works, Deputy Speaker. So there you see, again, a gutting of the Procurement Act, where now the Minister of Finance and this government is changing the paradigm in this whole procurement aspect, Deputy Speaker, and including works, which includes engineering and construction of issues of contracts up to $1 million that you do not need to fall under the Procurement Act, Deputy Speaker. I don't think that's a good thing for the country. We have some issues on that, and we'll say more in another time, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, when you look at Section Clause 5, which relates to the SPT aspect, Deputy Speaker, I want to say firstly that we in the opposition is not opposed to the amendments to the SPT and even what the Minister of Energy talked about, the sustainable incentives, Deputy Speaker. We are not opposed to that. What we are opposed to, and we would like to expand the discussion, is that over the past 2 to 3 years, actually in these finance bills, is the whole aspect of energy is being treated in a piecemeal affair, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, last year in a finance bill, the Minister of Finance brought a change to the SPT for onshore small producers in relationship to changing the SPTs for that aspect, Deputy Speaker, in new wells, just for new wells, Deputy Speaker. In our debate discussions, we told the Minister of Finance that would not be feasible to alone address new wells, Deputy Speaker, onshore. And because there was a host of issues with that. And Deputy Speaker, I'm yet to understand or appreciate, or the country, or us and the opposition, what were the results or the effects of that amendment that was done last year by the Minister of Finance through for the Ministry of Energy. I would have thought that even in his budget presentation or even today, the Minister of Finance would have told us here this afternoon the results of the initiatives that was done last year, 12 months ago. So, Deputy Speaker, we need to find out about that. Today, Deputy Speaker, in this amendment, we are talking about small producers, which the definition is 4,000 barrels per and under in shallow marine waters, Deputy Speaker. Again, Minister of Energy, last year, the minister spoke about those SPT changes would have been one of the first step in the adjustment to SPT, and there were step 2 and step 3, Deputy Speaker, and I will discuss that later on. Deputy Speaker, I just want to put again on the record for the umpteenth time, Minister Young, the Minister of Energy, Deputy Speaker, every time the minister gets up to speak about oil production and capital incentives under the PP government, the minister talks about we gave away revenue, we over-incentivize the large players in the energy sector, Deputy Speaker. It's the same rhetoric that the minister talks about every time he gets up to speak. I just want to, for the umpteenth time, put it on the record again, Deputy Speaker. And I want to quote the former BP President, Norman Christie, about this incentive that the Minister of Energy constantly talks about. And I quote the minister, and this is a Trinidad Guardian 14th April 2016 article. Deputy Speaker, I know you like where we get the source from. And I quote, this is the former BP President Norman Christie in 2016. And I quote, the sensational stories about decreased taxes due to change fiscal incentives and 100% one-year write-offs for projects such as the Juniper have no basis in reality. Even if the tax codes had not been changed 2 years ago, we would still have the same reduction in taxes because of deeply depressed prices and reduced production. And consistent with the tax code, we are writing off development spent over 3 years, not 1 year, as has been commonly reported, Deputy Speaker. So, Deputy Speaker, for the umpteenth time, we are putting on the record again that the Minister of Energy keeps misleading this country that the write-offs, that because of the incentives that the PP government gave, had some loss of revenue, and that is not so. The BP for Norman Christie said so, Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Speaker, Standing Order 48.6, please.
Again, member, I'll give you a little leeway. Just be careful in terms of your references accordingly as you go along.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, and I move on. Deputy Speaker, again, the Minister of Energy constantly comes here again in the Parliament and talks about oil production. I just want to put it on the record again. Underneath their stewardship, underneath this government, since 2015 to present, Deputy Speaker, the oil production and gas production in our country has been at its lowest in decades under their stewardship, Deputy Speaker. They have done nothing to increase our oil and gas production. That is a fact, Deputy Speaker. But the Minister of Energy constantly comes here in the Parliament chambers and gives the impression that this oil production and gas production, the decrease that we are seeing, is because of the PP government, and that is, again, not so, Deputy Speaker. It's not so, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, this SPT that we are debating here this afternoon, nothing is wrong with the SPT. Nothing is wrong with the sustainable incentives, Deputy Speaker. But there are much more that this government can do to increase or to help assist our small producers in finding oil and gas in our country. Last year, Deputy Speaker, in 2023 budget, I mentioned, they did it for the new wells in the small onshore producers. This year, they are coming back now and doing it for the small marine producers, Deputy Speaker. They are doing it again in a piecemeal fashion, Deputy Speaker, and we are saying in the opposition, if you are trying to increase oil production in our country, deal with it in a holistic way. Not only the small producers, Deputy Speaker, deal with the large producers, incentivize the companies in our country to try and find the oil and gas that is so detrimental in keeping our revenues and our standard of living for our citizens, Deputy Speaker. You cannot keep putting all your eggs in this basket in Venezuela, Deputy Speaker. You cannot keep doing that, right? We have said that time and time again, Deputy Speaker. But it appears that this government and the Minister of Energy is placing everything under the Venezuelan deals, whether it is the Dragon gas, whether it is the Lauren Manatee fields, Deputy Speaker. I recognize the Madam Speaker here on the chair. So, again, Madam Speaker, we have seen that so much more can be done to increase our oil and gas production, but it cannot be done at what is being proposed here again, year on year, with just simple band-aids on our SPTs and trying to increase production, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's an issue that the Minister of Energy touched on. It's about capital expenditure. The Minister of Energy and the Minister of Finance last year in their budget of 2023 talked about capital expenditure for the energy companies. Again, it has not been addressed in our budget for 2024 going forward. This afternoon, I know the Minister of Energy briefly touched on it, that they are considering it. But again, Madam Speaker, it is about, it's trying to ramp up our gas production or oil production in our country so that we can benefit and not depend on external countries to assist us, Madam Speaker. So we are asking through you, Madam Speaker, to the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Energy, when the energy companies will be able to get an incentive for capital expenditure to be able to write off certain things in capital expenditure in their companies, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, back in August 21, 2023, the Energy Chamber, and I just want to quote a couple lines. Back in August 2023, the Energy Chamber released a powerful statement in our view, and it's entitled, "The Need for Speed." And that article from the Energy Chamber is about the need for speed, about ramping up, incentivizing our energy companies, Madam Speaker, because we are behind time. The Energy Chamber feels that a lot more could be done to assist our energy companies, and that is why that article was entitled "The Need for Speed," Madam Speaker. And it cannot be business as usual. It cannot be business as usual, Madam Speaker, in our energy sector, Madam Speaker. It cannot be business as usual, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, when the Minister of Energy this afternoon talked about deep water bid wrongs and the shallow bid wrongs, trying to assist in our finding gas and oil, Madam Speaker, the Minister failed to mention here this afternoon that underneath their stewardship, once again, none of their bid wrongs have been successful. It has been a constant failure. Whatever how they frame those bid wrongs, Madam Speaker, it has been a constant failure, whether it is deep water or shallow bid wrongs, Madam Speaker. So they need to maybe relook at how they do their business, Madam Speaker, because underneath the PP government between 2010 and 2015, we had very successful bid wrongs, and that is the reason why we have been able to keep the country afloat in our oil and gas sector, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so I won't be long, Madam Speaker, because a lot has been said in the other clauses of this bill this afternoon. I just wanted to address a few of the concerns that the Minister of Energy raised, and I had to rebut some of the concerns. So in closing, Madam Speaker, I would just like the Minister of Energy maybe take into account looking at that school corporate sponsorship and maybe addressing and looking at it from the aspects of parents being able to sponsor certain things for the schools that they might have attended or their children attended, Madam Speaker. And in closing, Madam Speaker, I just want to say this finance bill is a reflection of the budget, as it fully shows that this budget lacked any potent fiscal measures to propel our country forward. Last year, we had over 18 measures in 2 finance bills that was brought last year in the 2023 budget, Madam Speaker. Today, we are approving a meager six measures. If you wanted to understand how the budget impacts your life, Madam Speaker, as a citizen, the finance bill here shows fully well that. The finance bill is passing a clause to tax on your property. It allows the government to procure goods and services without proper procurement. The energy measures that I mentioned are meager, leaving our energy sector in a state of crisis. And the other measure that we do not approve, that do not approve our day-to-day lives, Madam Speaker. So with those few words, Madam Speaker, I thank you.